Hey goal getters, welcome back to another episode of The Mental Perspective. My name is Jenna Weinstein, your sport and psychology coach and owner of Rippleeffectperformance. Winter is in the air, folks, and if you haven't noticed, I've already got my sweaters on and my scarves keeping me cozy. And when I think of winter, I'm also thinking about New Year's. New Year's is just around the corner for us, and I know with New Year's, we are thinking of goals that we want to hit and commit to and how we want to be better this next year than we were this year. And sometimes when we want to hit new goals, a few of us can fall into the mistake of overestimating what we're actually capable of or what's realistic for us. Sometimes we're too optimistic of what's actually going to happen. So what I want to talk about today are the warning signs that are going to cue us into when we are becoming a little overly optimistic and how we can correct ourselves and be more realistic with our thinking and our goals. Let's get after it. If you consider yourself an optimistic thinker, go ahead and give this video a like. And if you think you're not that much of an optimistic thinker, go ahead and give this video a like as well, because all of us can learn something from this video today. Sometimes when it comes to being an optimistic thinker, we can think that that's just meaning that our heads are in the clouds and that we are all about sunshine and butterflies and rainbows. And if you've missed my earlier video that I put out before, I did an entire video on the benefits of being an optimistic thinker and how to be more of an optimistic thinker if you tend to think more pessimistically. So if you haven't seen that video, you can click the link up above and I'll attach a link in the description below for you to check that out. And even though I think being an optimistic thinker is the way to go when it comes to our thinking, if given the choice, if somebody asked me, Jenna, what should I do? Be a pessimistic thinker or be an optimistic thinker? I'm gonna say optimism all the way. And with that, sometimes we can have too much of a good thing. Sometimes we can be overly optimistic in our thinking, and that can get us into trouble. So there are 3 things we have to be on the lookout for if we are too optimistic in our thinking. So the first warning sign that our thinking is overly optimistic is if we overestimate how much control we actually have in this situation. A key element to being an optimistic thinker is having a realistic idea of how much control and influence you have in a situation. And sometimes we can overestimate how much control we have going into a situation. And that means we could think that we're going to be more successful than we might actually be. We could think that we're going to win or that we're going to achieve that goal and that we can control a lot more of the aspects of that goal than we actually can. And what the issue is with that is we run the risk of setting ourselves up for failure before we even get started. So if I think, oh, I don't have anything to worry about, I'm training for a powerlifting competition, but I don't really have to train because I'm already super strong. I'm overconfident and I'm over guessing how much control I actually have in this situation. And now I run the risk of not training as much, not taking care of myself, and setting myself up for failure. So that's an unrealistic amount of control for me to think that I have in this situation and for my goal. The second warning sign that we are overly optimistic in our thinking is we are too confident in ourselves. And I know some of you are probably taken aback by this and thinking, well, what's wrong with being too confident? Well, it is important to be confident. Optimistic thinkers are confident in themselves and their abilities. And sometimes we are too confident to the point where we have an unrealistic idea of what we're actually capable of. We overestimate our skill set. We overestimate how good we actually are, which means we might be putting ourselves into situations that we can't handle, that could be overwhelming to us, and we run the risk of not listening to feedback or input from other people because we might think that we know more than they do, which isn't good. And the third warning sign that we are being too optimistic in our thinking or overly optimistic in our thinking is we don't think that negative events are going to happen to us. We almost think that we're invincible going into situations. So my husband and I were actually talking about this over the weekend, that sometimes some of us think that we're superheroes, but we are not actually blessed with any type of superpower. So it's okay to have the mentality that you are a superhero, but if you don't have the superpowers to back it up, you are setting yourself up for a lot of failure. So what I encourage you all to do is really think about, are you going into situations thinking that you cannot fail, that you are impervious to bad things happening in or around you? You're not. Bad things are going to happen, negative events are going to happen, and we often don't have control of what events take place in our lives. So it's important when we're optimistic in our thinking to be aware of all scenarios that can go on, whether they can go right for us or go wrong for us. And most importantly, have a plan for anything that could happen. That's what's most important. Don't just assume that the positives are always going to happen. Have a plan for everything. So I don't want you all walking away from this video thinking being an optimistic thinker is a bad thing. It is not. It's important to be an optimistic thinker. Like I said in my last video, optimistic thinkers are healthier and happier compared to other thinkers, pessimistic thinkers specifically. So we want more optimistic thinking in our lives. And it's just so important that we're mindful of how optimistic we are being. Think of optimistic thinking as a spectrum. We just want to be realistic in our thinking. We want to be realistic in how much control we have going into a situation. We want to be realistic with what our skill set and what our capabilities are. We want to be realistic with what outcomes can happen to us going into certain situations. So with the new year coming on and all of us setting goals that we want to accomplish, let's do our best to make sure that the goals we're setting are realistic for us, that we're not setting ourselves up for failure or disappointment, or that we're not overwhelming ourselves. So let's take this time that we have left in this year to really think about realistic goals that we want to set for ourselves. So let me hear from you all. Comment down below with goals that you're working on going into this new year, and make sure that those goals you're thinking of are realistic for you. And remember to give this video a like, hit that thumbs up button, and subscribe to this channel. And don't just keep this information to yourselves, share it with your friends and family. And remember folks, I'm here to bring you strategies and techniques that are going to help you strengthen your mindset, which will lead to achieving your goals and being successful in life. Because that's what the ripple effect is, folks. So let's start your ripple effect today.